Hello everyone, this is Neha Sharma. So dear kids, in this video, today we are going to discuss chapter number 1 of our Footprints Without Feet for class 10th. This is chapter number 1 of your syllabus, and we have discussed this chapter previously through introduction video, where we read that this chapter is written by James Harriet, who was born on 3rd October 1916 and died on 23rd February 1995. His actual name was James Alfred Witt, but he started writing his writings and novels, whatever he read. He wrote with the name, by the pen name James Harriet. He was a British veterinary surgeon and a writer who used his many years of experiences as veterinary surgeon to write a series of books, each consisting of stories about animals and their owners. He is best known for these small autobiographical works. So let's see here what the chapter says. Here on your first page in the box, you can see Tricky, a small dog, is pampered and overfed by his rich mistress. And who was the mistress of the dog? Mrs. Pumphrey. He falls seriously ill, and his mistress consults a veterinary doctor. Who is veterinary doctor? Mr. Harriet, right? So James Harriet, who is the author, he himself is the writer of the story. Does he perform an operation? Does the dog recover? So these are the questions we have to find out. In first section, we will read and get why is Mrs. Pumphrey worried about Tricky. Second, why does she do to help him? Is she wise in this? Who does I refer to in the story? So dear students, I will give you the first answer, very first point, because the story is starting with this I. So this I is the author, whose name is James Harriet, who is the surgeon, veterinary surgeon. Okay. So I was really worried about Tricky this time. I had pulled up my car when I saw him in the street with his mistress, and I was shocked at his appearance. He had become hugely fat, like a blotted sausage with a leg at each corner. His eyes, bloodshot and rheumy, stared straight ahead, and his tongue lolled from his jaws. Mrs. Pumphrey hastened to explain. He was so listless, Mr. Harriet. He seemed to have no energy. I thought he must be suffering from malnutrition. So I have been giving him some little extras between meals to build him up. Some malt and cod liver oil and a bowl of Horlicks at night to make him sleep. Nothing much really. So this Mrs. Pumphrey told to doctor at the first meeting. So here you have to note down some of the words with the meanings, and the first word is what? First word is mistress. What is it? Mistress. So mistress you have to do, that is a woman in the position of authority, right? Second, you have to do blotted. This word blotted. Blotted means excessive in size or amount, right? Next is what? Sausage. Sausage is an item of food in the form of a cylindrical length or minced pork or other meat in that skin, right? So this is something, a kind of bread, or this is the stuffed bread of cylindrical shape, that's called sausage, with a leg at each corner. Next word here you will do bloodshot. Bloodshot is what? Inflamed or tinged with blood. That's called bloodshot. Next word is rheumy. Rumi is watery, and lolled from his jaws. Lolled means to lie, or to stand in a lazy way. So that means lolled, but here it is lie. Next, Mrs. Pumphrey hastened. So this word hasten means to be quick to do something, that is called hastened. Next word you will underline here, least less. What is the word? Least less. Least less means lacking energy or enthusiasm, right? So what happens in this paragraph? Let's see. The narrator starts telling us that how he was worried about Tricky, who was the pet dog of whom? Mrs. Pumphrey. The narrator, Mr. Harriet, stops his car and sees that Tricky with his mistress on the road, as the narrator is very shocked to see Tricky because he looks like a blotted sausage. As I've told you, this blotted sausage. Blotted means what? Blotted is what? That is what? No, something great in amount, very excessive in amount. And sausage is that cylindrical pieces of bread which are stuffed with meat and something, right? So like that. So the appearance of the Tricky was that. So he was tensed to see Tricky that this little dog is looking like too blotted. Why? What is the reason? Okay. He has become very fat, he thought, and he told us that his eyes were red, rheumy eyes, with red and watery. Mrs. Pumphrey, Tricky's owner, starts giving explanation when he asked. She told him that she thought that Tricky was malnourished, right? And so that's why he did not have any energy and excitement. So she told him that she used to give him malt, cod liver oil and a bowl of Horlicks at night. And apart from his regular meals, she is doing that. She is giving all these things, means in extra foods, because she thinks that her dog is, getting very weak. So that's why she gave all these things apart from his regular meals. And that was the reason that Tricky was becoming so huge and too fat, right? And did you cut down on the sweet things as I told you? So this is the dialogue of the doctor, that I advised you, Mrs. Pumphrey, that you have to cut down his sweets, right? Whatever the sweet things you used to give her. Oh, I did for a bit, but he seemed to be so weak. I had to relent. He does love cream, cakes and chocolate so. I can't bear to refuse him. I looked down again at the little dog. That was the trouble. Tricky's only fault was the greed. He had never been known to refuse food. He would tackle a meal at any hour of the day or night. And I wondered about all the things Mrs. Pumphrey hadn't mentioned. So here in this paragraph, you will see a word relent, right? Relent. So this relent means what? Become less severe, right? This is called relent. Now, what happens here? The doctor further asked Mrs. Pumphrey that Mrs. Pumphrey, I have told you to cut down the meals and cut down the sweets also. Have you done that? So on this she replied that she did it for a while, but she felt that he was getting weaker, means Tricky was getting weaker, because of which she had to stop being so harsh with him. After all, she treats him, Tricky, as her baby. Also, she says that she is unable to refuse him cakes and chocolates as those were his favorite, as whatever these cakes and chocolates were Tricky's favorite. So I looked down again at the little dog. So here Mr. Harriet guessed that. He saw once again at the dog, right? And he, just I looked again on the little dog, and he said that only that was the trouble. That is the trouble, that the Tricky is getting too, heavy to blotted. So he got the problem of Tricky, and the dog was very greedy, and he could eat at any time of the day. He did not know how to say no to food when his stomach was full. After that also he can eat something, right? So the narrator also thought to himself of all the things that Mrs. Pumphrey would not have mentioned in the list. She mentioned only the chocolates, cakes, cod liver, Horlicks, this and that. But some of the things were there which Mrs. Pumphrey was not telling. But the doctor, as he was a doctor, he understood that because this dog is very, greedy. So that's why Mrs. Pumphrey also, because she loves the dog too much, so she also had not mentioned some of the things which she usually gives the dog. Are you giving him plenty of exercise? Next he asked. So this is the dialogue of doctor. Well, he has little walks with me, as you can see, but Hodkin, the gardener, has been down with lumbago, so there has been no ring throwing lately. Now you have to underline this word lumbago. So lumbago is what? Lumbago is a pain in the muscles of the of the lower muscles of the back, you can say. So this is lumbago. And who is this Hodging? Hodging is cook. No, it is gardener. Who is he? Gardener of Mrs. Pumphrey, who helps the dog in his exercises. But what she said here, when the doctor asked Mrs. Pumphrey that is he taking proper exercises, right? So at that she said she does take him out for the walks once in a while, but he is not playing with the rings or he is not doing any exercises. So what was the reason she gave for that? That the gardener who takes him out to play is not coming these days, or he is in because he got this pain of his lower back because he has got lumbago. Now come on the next page. I tried to sound severe. Now I really means this. If you don't cut his food right down and give him more exercise, he is going to be really ill. You must harden your heart and keep him on a very strict diet. Now here, severe means what? This word severe means very great or intense, right? So I tried to sound severe. So this doctor is saying here that then he talked seriously to Mrs. Pumphrey that if she did not control Tricky's eating habits, right, and will increase his whatever extras she is giving to him, and if she will not take care of the exercises, if she will increase the exercises and decrease the eating habits, so the dog would soon fall ill. She said this to Mrs. Pumphrey directly. You must harden your heart and keep him on a very strict diet. He told that you should stay strong and strict with him and put him on a particular and fixed diet. Mrs. Pumphrey wrung her hands. Oh, I will, Mrs. Harriet. I'm sure you are right, but it is so difficult, so very difficult. She set off, head down along the road as if determined to put the new regime into practice immediately. So here you have to underline this word regime. Regime is what? Regime is a system or a order, right? Now let's see what this paragraph says, that because the doctor told him, and she just got afraid that the dog will be soon ill if she will not stop doing all the things which she is giving. Mrs. Pumphrey wrung her hands. So at this, Mrs. Pumphrey accepted that although she knew that Mr. Harriet was right, but it was too difficult for her to refuse him, the dog, anything. But then she left the place as if she was now ready to follow the new regime. The new regime means the new routine properly. I watched their progress with growing concern. Tricky was tottering along in his little tweed coat. He had a whole wardrobe of these coats for the cold weather and a raincoat for the wet days. He struggled on, drooping in his harness. I thought it wouldn't be long before I heard for Mrs. Pumphrey. So here you can see that one word is tottering. So that tottering you have to underline here, and please write down the meaning. It is, the feeble way, at very weak way, to walk very weakly. So that is called feeble. One more word is there, tweed coat. So this tweed coat is what? Tweed is actually a rough woolen surface cloth, right? And wardrobe is what? That is what? A cupboard is called wardrobe. And harness is a set of straps, right, which the dog is having. The collars means, you can say, that is called harness. Now here in this paragraph, the doctor, right, was telling when Mrs. Pumphrey and Tricky went. So Mr. Harriet was watching them go and looking at Tricky's walking unsteadily. He was watching that scene from his car itself, and he noticed that how unsteadily the dog is walking. He was also looking at the tweed coat that Tricky was wearing, and he told us here that Tricky had a wardrobe full of these coats and also of raincoats for the rainy days. This line also suggests that Mrs. Pumphrey was a very rich lady, as she had a lot of money to spend on her dog, right? So that's why she was overdoer of something. The expected call came with a few days. Mrs. Pumphrey was distraught. Tricky would eat nothing, refused even his favorite dishes, and besides, he had bouts of vomiting. He spent all his time lying on a rug, panting, didn't want to go for walks, didn't want to do anything. I had made my plans in advance. The only way was to get Tricky out of the house for a period. I suggested that he be hospitalized for about a fortnight to be kept under observation. The expected call came within a few days. Mrs. Pumphrey was distraught. Tricky would eat nothing, refused even if his favorite dishes, and besides, he had bouts of vomiting. So dear students, please note some of the new words here. Please keep pencil in your hand so that it will be easy for you. Your first word here is distraught. Distraught means very worried and upset, right? And after that you have to underline this bouts of vomiting. Bouts is a short period, means after a short period, right? That is called bouts. And rug is a floor covering, right? It is a mat type of something, so that is called rug. And panting is panting. Panting means what? A breathe with short, quick breaths, or you can say out of breath, right? So here in this paragraph, as Dr. Harriet was expecting the call from Mrs. Pumphrey, because he realized on that day also, when he met Mrs. Pumphrey and the dog Tricky on the road. So he expected a call from Mrs. Pumphrey. So that day came and the call was there. So being actually surgeon of veterinary surgeon, he knew actually that in advance that Tricky will has to be hospitalized. So Mrs. Pumphrey was very upset when she called him, as Tricky was not eating anything, not even his favorite dishes, and was vomiting frequently. He didn't even want to do anything, right? So being a very intelligent veterinary doctor, Mr. Harriet knew that only the way to get Tricky well was to get him out of the house for a few days, right? And he said that he wants to keep the dog in under observation for fortnight, means for the period of 15 days. The poor lady almost swooned. She was sure she would pine and die if he did not see her every day. But I took a firm line. Tricky was very ill, and this was the only way to save him. In fact, I thought it is the best to take him without delay. So here the doctor, as he told, right? So the lady swooned. Swooned means what? Swooned means to conscious, to get unconscious, sorry. So a little partial consciousness, so that is called, means she was unconscious. And when the doctor told that this dog had to be hospitalized, right? So what happened that time? Mrs. Pumphrey nearly fainted, means remained unconscious. She was sure that if Tricky did not see her every day, he would surely die. But the narrator kept his words, and he told her that this was the only option, as Tricky was very ill, right? So dear students, up to this page number 2 we have read the story. In our next video we will read what happened with dog Tricky, and was he all right or not. That's all for today. Enjoy the story, stay safe, stay healthy, and please write down the new words in your notebook. Thank you very much.